Okay, you guys, so today we'll do a quick review of what we did last time, and then we'll move on to morphology and syntax of Middle English, okay? So we'll use the new PowerPoint file. So let's do a quick review of what we did last time. So last week we talked about two main things, right? Spelling changes and also sound changes. So to start out with spelling changes, you know that in Middle English we have a lot of influence from French. So French scribes, people who wrote down manuscripts, they changed the conventions of spelling, right? For example, you guys, the first three symbols, they are the same, right? We call them the yo, right? So the yo, in Old English, they represent so many sounds. For example, X or S or Z, and also E, right? E, yeah, yeah. So in Middle English, so you have these changes. So the yo became GH, especially when it's represented the sound X, right? So L-I-O-T became L-I-G-H-T, like that in Middle English. And then we also use it for S in S or Z sound in Old English, but in late Middle English, we just use an S. And then the Y sound in front, right, in the front, when it represents the palatalization, we use the Y sound instead, the Y symbol, the Y letter instead in Middle English, like that. And the air sound in Old English, and also the spelling of it, we call it the ash, right? So it went to EA, E or A, right, in Middle English. So after became after, like that. And then this is the thorn, right? So there should be like a little ascender here, the thorn. The thorn, which represents the sound W, it was replaced by UU, W, or V even, right? So we have wisse to wisse. And then the F or the theta, right? So we use the theta or TH in late Middle English, right? So you can see the thorn or TH in Middle English, right? Later in late Middle English, because the theta and the F, they were on the way out, right? Remember that this is a long period, right, for about 300, 400 years. So you see a mix of two symbols. And then C is used for K in Old English, right, and also the CH in Old English. But because of the French convention, we also use C to represent the S sound, especially in the front before a front vowel. So cinder became cinder spelled with a C because of French influence, right? So we talked about that last time. And there are other letters that we borrowed from French, like the J, right? J to represent the sound E, right? And then the K we also borrow from French. Especially we replace the C spelling with the K, right? K spelling when it's before a front sound, right? And we keep the C to represent the K sound when it's before a back vowel, so just like the second row, right? And then we borrow V and U also, and W and X and Z also, right? So this is what we talked about last time. And these are what we call digraphs. You know digraphs? So di is two, right? Graph, writing. So you write one sound with two symbols, right? So one sound with two symbols, that's what we mean by digraphs. So we had these digraphs from French, right? From French. So we use CH instead of just a C, right? Which is a case of palatalization in Old English. So we just use CH. So we borrow that from French. And then GG and DG for CG in Old English, right? And GU for G as in guess. So guess, we spell it with guess. Same pronunciation, but we just change the spelling from G to GU, like that. CW changed to QU because of French also, and also Latin. And then you have other digraphs also. So this is what we talked about last time. And for vowels, this is important. We changed the digraph O, right, or OO right? Because of the minims, remember? Because of the minims. So there are so many strokes, right? Straight strokes that they may be confusing to the readers. So scribe changed from U to O, right? Or OO even. And then U to OU or OW. And then for long vowels that we represent with microns, right? So the stroke above it, we just double the vowels, right? And sound changes that we talked about last time include the phonemization of V, Z, and the voice TH, right? Because of so many reasons, and we did a practice exercise for that, including loan words from French, including function words like this, them, there, including dialectal differences, the north and the south, right? And then the dropping of final vowels, right? Which make these which makes these fricatives voice, right? In positions that they never occurred before. And we talked about loss, consonantal losses, for example, the length, right? So when you have double consonants in Old English, they will usually pronounce longer than just one, right? So man, like that. So the double consonants were on the way out, so you just replace it with just one, right? For Philan and Phil, they just level it off with double L. But in terms of pronunciation, it's just one L, right? So when you write a phonetic transcription for Phil, it's just one L, right? F, and then short E, and then L. So just one L, right? The spelling doesn't matter, but the sound is out. The length is out. And then H is lost in consonant cluster like halaf dige, haneka, harafna. H is on the way out, right? And the bow tie goes to W, right? That's vocalization, right? So the back sound, like that, goes to W, right? So saru to sau, like that, because it's easier to pronounce. So this is what we call vocalization of, so the process whereby a consonant became a vowel, right? Or semi-vowel, like W is a semi-vowel. And then unstressed final consonants were lost, as in ik to just I, right? And then lik to li. So that's the adverb ending, right? And deletion of W after S or T, like swaster to sister, sword to sword, toward to two. The spelling doesn't matter, right? Meaning that the spelling, in spelling, W might still be there, but the sound is already out. And then V before C or VC, so halavort, so this should be a V, right? Because it's flanked by two voice sound, or hefort, right? So the V is gone, right, in this position. And then L near T hook, elk to each, and so on, because perhaps L is a lateral sound and it's difficult to pronounce in front of the T hook sound, like that. And then B after M, so lamb to just lamp, and so on. So spelling doesn't matter, right? B remains in the spelling system, but the sound is gone. And once you have losses, like consonantal losses, you delete them, you have intrusive changes, meaning that you put in, right? You put in a lot of sounds. So for ease of pronunciation. So B is usually inserted after M because they share the same place of articulation, which is bilabial, right? So B is inserted after M in these words. And then T after S, and then D after N. Notice that they share the same place of articulation, right? T and S alveolar, D and N alveolar also, right? And this reflects in the spelling also. When you put in the B after the M, T after the S, D after the N, they will reflect on the spelling system also, right? And for vowel changes, we have qualitative changes, right? From one vowel to a different vowel, right? So quality, one vowel to a different vowel. So U plus the 2 dots above, that's the rounded E, right? Rounded U, like that. So spelled with a Y in Old English, right? So the rounded nature is gone, right? So the rounding is gone. So we just pronounce it with breed. So unrounded, so just spread. So the unrounding is gone in this case, right? And then we spell it with a little I, right? Lowercase I instead of a Y because the unrounding is gone. And also the air to R, right? So one vowel to a different vowel. Clanne to clane, spelled with an E, right? Or EE, as in this example, Dale to Dale, right? And this is very important in unstressed syllables. In unstressed syllables, full vowels became a schwa sound, right? Because they are unstressed, right? So oxa, oxe, when these vowels became a schwa sound, they were spelled with an E, right? So that's the convention. They were spelled with an E, right? And diphthongs were simplified, right? Diphthongs were simplified so that only the front part was left, right? So harm to harm, heaven to heaven, and so on. And in the last example, there's no diphthong oi before. So we borrow joy from French, right? Joy from French. So we borrow one new diphthong, right? And finally, we talked about quantitative changes, right? So one vowel is lengthened or shortened, right? So that's quantity, right? So how long we pronounce a vowel. So lengthening occurs in open syllables. Open syllable meaning when you have a consonant and a vowel, right? So, and then there's no consonant that acts as a coda to close it off, like makian. So you have 2 syllables here. So the first syllable is ma, right? Ma, and then the second syllable is kian. So ma here is an open syllable because there's nothing that follows it, right? So there are 2 syllables here. So the ma here gets lengthened to ma, right? And then in the second condition, when a vowel is followed by voice cluster, such as LD or ND, these are voice clusters, right? So they lengthen the vowel. So you see the LD here, so failda to failed, like that. So this is important because in modern English that we'll be studying next week, in modern English, this will undergo a different change, right? And then it will become field in modern English, right? Field, fell to field. So if you don't lengthen it, then you cannot go past that last stage to become modern English, right? And then shortening, so this is the opposite of lengthening, right? So shortening, you have shortening in the first syllable of a trisyllabic word, right? So we have suterne and sooth, right? So in this case, in modern English, present day English, we pronounce this as south, right? We pronounce this as south, but we pronounce this as southern, right? So the difference is because of this. So we shorten this southern, right? Because there are 3 syllables here, suterne, right? So we shorten it so that nowadays we have southern, not south. But we don't shorten this, right? So that's why in the last stage of change we have south, right? And then in closed syllables, except those voice cluster above, so except these, right? So in closed syllables we'll shorten the vowels, as in hid, right? So Y here will go to an E in Middle English, we talked about that, right? But this is a closed syllable because it's closed off with a D, right? With a D. So we pronounce it hid, not lengthen, right? So in modern English, it's hid, right? High, hid, hidden, like that. So it's hid. However, when we have the verb, the infinitive hide. So he done, right? So in this case, we have to lengthen it because there is this syllable boundary here, and he is open syllable, right? He. And in the last stage of change, he becomes high because of that lengthening, right? So that's why we have a difference in present day English between high, hid, and hidden, right? Hid and hidden, they didn't get to pronounce hidden because of this shortening, right? And then there's the last stage of change. And then in unstressed syllables also, so for example in these words, right? So that's what we talked about last time, and this is the vowel chart for Middle English. You see that Y or the U with the two dots, the rounded E, they were on the way out already, right? So as a practice exercise, could you turn these words into present day English, right? Using your knowledge of spelling changes and also sound changes, right? So in this case, in Middle English, so what should it be in present day English? And then, let's see. Sorry, I made a mistake. It should be Old English and Middle English, not present day English. So it should be OE, OE, where's mine here? Somehow I cannot make the change here. So it should be OE and then ME, right? Old English to Middle English. And then here also Old English to Middle English. So I'll say first. So in Old English, we pronounce it as a Y sound, right? Remember, it's the palatalization, right? Remember, palatalization. So in Middle English, it should be Y, right? So it should be like this, right? In number two, you know that there is a problem of the minims, right? With the N following it, it could be confusing. So they changed the spelling system to the spelling convention to SON. And sometimes you have an E and, oops, why E is here. So E, right, at the end, and sometimes the E dropped out because this is a long period, right? So at the end, the E will drop out. So we have the word sun, right? And number three, the thorn changed to TH, right? And sometimes you might still see the thorn in the manuscript, right? Depending on whether it's the early Middle English or late Middle English, like that. And then air changed to R, right? Or EA, and then that, right? And then number four, author. So we should have the word like this, right? Because the thorn will become a TH in late Middle English, like that. And then number five, let's see. Number five, you might see the spelling variations between BUT and BOT, depending on whether it's a late or early Middle English, right? Number six, that's the word day, right? Day. So you have a lot of variation here. So it could be day like this, day with a J, day with a Y. There's a lot of variation for the the I, lowercase I. Right? Number 7. C before the U. C before the U is the same, right? Because C before the U is pronounced with a K, and we keep that convention, remember? So it's C, right? And URT, sometimes you will see CORT, right? And sometimes you might see COURT. So anything is possible. Number 8, what's that word? Can you guess? Number 8. In Old English, we know that there's no V, right? There's no V, so people use what symbol to represent the V? U, right? U or W. So this is the word love, right? So love. So in this case, in Middle English, as you know, it could be LOVED, LOUED, LOUUED. So it could be many things. Right? Because the U or the V could be W, WV. Right? In number 9, so I'll take out one of these because, or else I would run out of space. Number 9, that word is chosen, right? Chosen. Right, chosen. So in this case, we have CH instead, and then SEN. Right? Because U, remember U became O or OU in Middle English, right? And then C becomes CH. 1B, so we go to the next column. 1B, the first word, can you guess what word it is? Through. So it should be like TH, right? TH, OURGH, like that. So the yo here became the GH, right? The thorn became the TH. And then the U became the OU, right? Or you might also see U. THURGH, like that. Right? 2B. Schulen. So what word is that? Shall, right? Shall. So we change SCH to HS, right? And you might see like this. You might see UL, you might see AL, right? Or even SSOUAL, show. So you see many forms here. When we read Middle English text on Thursday, you have to be flexible in terms of spelling, right? Again, because this period, just like Old English, is a long period, and it is about 300 or 400 years. So one form didn't just replace another form, right, overnight. So that's why you see a lot of variations in spelling like this. Okay. Now 3, I'll take one off. 3B, what is that word? V and U, same thing. So what do we have? URE or OURE? Hour, the word hour, ure, right? Hour. Or you might see WRE even. 4B, that word is land, right? L-A-N-D, land. Sometimes you will see the E and sometimes you don't. So land in 4B, land. Five B, think, right? Think. Yeah.
Where you put land?
E. Sorry. E should be the E. Number 5B, the word is thing, right? Sometimes you see the E at the end and sometimes you don't. Six B, what do you guess? What's your guess? The yo between the T, the yo before the T. What do you think it would become in Middle English? GH, right? GH. So you have RI, GHT, or even RI, and then J, GHT, like this. Seven B, the word is month, right? Month. So M-O-N-T-H. Number 8. So sometimes you might see double E, and sometimes you sometimes you see just E. Nine B. Can you guess what it is? Y is lowercase I, right? And then U is the same as V. So can you guess what word it is? Given, right? Given. So G-I-V-N, like that. Given. It's not given or something. Given, right? Same word as give, gave, given, right? So for the last column, I'll go through that quickly. Number 1C, the word is unto, right? Unto, right? So you could spell it with U, right? U or W, right? Unto. 2C, what word? It's not haue, right? It's have, right? Have. H-A-V-E, have, right? Have. So this one is have. And then what else? 3C, right? 3C, that's where we are. 3C, miracle, right? Miracle. Y changed to I, right? Miracles. Oh, that's same as 4C. So miracles for both. And then 5, that's the French borrowing, right? This one is a French word spelled with C-I-O-N. In modern English, we say T-I-O-N, right? So condition, so T-I-O-N. And 6C, that one is which, right? Which. So Y changed to lowercase I. Number 7, Y changed to lowercase I also. So this, right? This. 8C, treatises, right? So Y changed to lowercase I, right? And then 9, the word is Marshall, right? Marshall, S-C to H-H, right? Marshall. So before we move on to syntax today, let's see. Let's go over the handout from last time that we didn't finish. So this is the one from last time, right? That we did on the first page. Voice fricatives became phonemic, right? We talked about that. So there's the second page and the third page also. So the second page, vowel lengthening and shortening of vowels, right? You guys know the conditions under which vowels get lengthened and also shortened, right? So in condition A, for example, this is the lengthening, right? Lengthening. So you see that in closed syllables, in consonant, voice consonant clusters like MB, ND, LD, right? So vowels will get lengthened. So this is important. And also in B, B is the lengthening condition, right? In open syllables, right? Vowels get lengthened. So in, that's my marker. In A and B, these are lengthening, right? And in C and D, these are shortening conditions, right? So conditions for shortening, right? That we just talked about. In C, in closed syllables, right? Syllables that end with a consonant sound, except for those consonants in A, right? And in D, sorry, in D, in two or more unstressed syllables, right? In multi-syllable words, right? The first syllable will get shortened, right? So D dog. So we have about 20 words here. We have about 20 words here. So can you check the conditions and see which condition these words would fit in? A, B, C, or D? A, B, C, or D? So blast, for example, this is the one that has already been done, right? So blast, for example. Blast here is a closed syllable, right? We know because this is the vowel ah, right? It's closed off with ST, right? So this is a closed syllable. So it falls under condition C, right? Closed syllable, so it gets shortened, right? C is shortening, right? So you put C there. And then binden, bindan, right? To bind. So that's the infinitive form. Now, what condition is this, right? You see the ND, right? ND, right? So you see the ND. It's closed syllable, but you see the ND. The cluster, the voice cluster, so it would fall under condition A, right? So these are, I guess, these are after the lengthening and the shortening took effect already. So these are Middle English words, right? So the vowels that you see here already received lengthening and also they already underwent the lengthening and shortening already, right? So in the third one, blind, right? Blind. Also, you see the lengthened E here. You see that it's a closed syllable, closed in the cluster, the voice cluster ND type, right? So this would be an A. So in modern English, early modern English, blind will become blind, the next step. Right? So can you fill in the answers here? Maybe in perhaps 5 minutes. So we'll see what you have. Okay. Go over these together. Now in number 4, what do we have? Number 4. That's the open syllable condition, right? Bo, so that's open, and then de or den, right? So the first syllable is open, right? So we have number, I think, B, right? Because it's open, so it's B. Even, right? Even. That condition is also the same, right? The open syllable condition. Fede, fede, right? Fede is shortened because we have double, right? Double consonant. So it's number C, right? Number C. Fonden. Oops. You see the UN, oh, I'm sorry, not UN, ND, right? You see the ND. So this is the lengthening condition in A, right? Friends, in this case, we have a shortening condition, right? We have a shortening condition rather than the number A, right? Rather than number A, because the vowel here is friend, the E instead of other vowels. So in this case, you see that it's not lengthened. So number C, right? And gold is lengthened because we have O plus LD. So this is condition A, right? Hare, and it will change to hair, right? Hair in modern English. So in this case, we have an open syllable. So which condition is it? Number B, right? Holiday, we don't say holy day, right? From the word holy, but we say holiday because of the lengthen, because of the shortening, right? So in this case, it's multi-syllable. So number D is correct. Horse, lengthening of the first one because it's the open syllable. Number B is correct. Hund, next one is hund, right? U plus ND. So in this case, it's the ND and also the U. So we have condition A. Right? Lefte, next one is lefte. So because of the ink smudge here, so this is the word lefte, right? So we have a closed syllable here, right? Closed syllable with the TE, right? So FT, so this is condition C. The next three words are under the same condition, right? They get the vowels, they get lengthened under the same condition. Mele, mete, rake, right? So under the open syllable condition, so B, B, B. Right? And finally, we have redolous, right? So in this case, it's a multi-syllable word, so there's no lengthening, the dog. Right? In the last column, so let's move to the last column, right? So rinde, so we have E plus ND, in this case, number A, right? Rust, closed syllable, right? So we have, which one is it? C. Right? Next one, smoke, right? Smoke. So it's open syllable. So B-boy is correct. Now the reason that we don't pronounce it as smoke is because, as you know, in Old English and Middle English, everything, right? Everything is pronounced. So smoke. So when we pronounce it smoke, we have two syllables. Smoke is one, ge is another. And then the E will be gone, right? In late Middle English, so we have smoke instead. Stepchild. So we have close syllable, right? Step and then child. So close syllable number C, right? Wakian. So we have wak and then gian, right? So this is an open syllable. B, right? Open syllable B. Wilde. So we have E plus LD. So condition A. Wombe, O plus MB. Condition A also, right? And finally, Yilden, right? Yilden, E, lowercase I plus LD. So condition A also. So I will ask you this type of question on the final exam. Now let's come back to our syntax change in Middle English. So we talked about sound changes and also spelling changes, right? In Middle English, when we talk about morphology and syntactic changes, we talk about two main things. One is simplification of inflection or morphology, and two is emergence of a new grammatical devices, including analytical forms and also more rigid word order, right? So let me talk about some terms here. Analytical forms, right? So because you might not know what that is. So in Old English, we say that Old English is a synthetic, right? So synthetic language. Synthetic meaning you have a lot of inflections, right? So inflections, as you know, after nouns like stan, stana, stanum, right? Indicating different cases, different noun groups, and also different genders, and so on, right? Now, this is Old English. And then in Middle English, we move to analytic, right? Without inflections. Now, you cannot expect any language that has zero inflection, right? You cannot expect that. When I say without inflections, meaning to a high degree, right? To a high degree, right? It's not like totally zero or anything, but not to a high degree, not in the same degree as Old English. So there is a movement from synthetic to analytic, right? So for example, in Old English, you would inflect a word. You would inflect a word, let's say an adjective, right? Adjective. For smart, so you inflect er, right, to indicate that it's a comparative form, right? Smart, smarter. That's synthetic, right? Because you inflect the adjective with the er, right, ending. Now in Middle English, there's a move from that synthetic to analytic, meaning that you don't use the inflections anymore, but you tend to use a separate word, analytic, a separate word. So rather than smarter, you change it to, let's say, more smart, like that. Right? Beautiful, more beautiful, like that. So in Middle English, you might see two forms competing. You might see both more smart and smarter, right? Competing, right? In Shakespeare, for example, that's early modern English, right? After Middle English even. You might see more better instead of good and better, right? So you might see more better. You might see double. So better is the synthetic, right? Good to better. So you inflect good to with er, right? And then you even change the form. And then you also have more here. Right? So what is on the rise? I think what is increasing in Middle English is the use of more analytical method of marking things. Right? Now, So we have two main things, right? Simplification of inflection and morphology and emergence of new grammatical device, including analytical forms and also more rigid word order. That's straightforward, right? So in Old English, because of the endings, you don't have to care about where you put words, right? Because the endings tell you whether it's a subject, object, and so on, dative, and so on. But without those inflections, you need to rely on word order, right? So what is presented first is the subject, what's presented after the verb is the object, like that, okay? So let's look at the simplification first. Simplification of inflections. So you'll see that here, these are for nouns, right? Simplification of noun inflections, nominal inflections, right? So nouns in Old English are inflected for number, case, gender, and classes, remember? So number, in Old English, you have singular, plural, and sometimes dual, right? Especially in pronouns, right? So we got rid of the dual, so we have singular and plural left, right? So that's important because you want to indicate number distinctions, right? Number distinction is important because, or else you wouldn't know whether it's one or many. So that one pretty much remains, right? From singular plural to singular plural, that one pretty much remains. And then in terms of case is not as important as number, right? Because without the case ending, we can rely on word order, right? So case, nominative, accusative, and dative fall under the same category, right? Fall under the same category. So we have non-genitive, in other words, right? Not marked. And then genitive remains because genitive is important. You want to indicate possession. So we have two cases, non-genitive and genitive, right, in modern English, in terms of marking, right? Gender lost altogether, right? Gender lost altogether and the gender system becomes what we call biological gender, right? Biological meaning, if this is a male subject, then you refer to it as a he. If this is a female subject, you refer to it as a she. Right? But if it is a thing, it's no gender, right? No gender. So what we call masculine, feminine, neuter here is grammatical gender. So grammatical gender is lost, replaced by natural gender or biological gender, right? Gender is not important, in other words. And classes of noun, strong, weak, mutated, strong nouns, weak nouns, they are all gone, right? We don't have classes anymore. Only some remnants, which I'll explain later. Because strong, remember strong nouns, strong masculine nouns are the majority in Old English. So the strong noun will take over. Strong noun will take over other classes, right? So no. Now, erosion of inflections example. So we have Old English here, right? Early Middle English and Late Middle English. You see three columns here, three main columns. Old English, Early Middle English, Late Middle English, right? Now, remember, we talked about this in vowel changes, right? That in unstressed syllables, vowels will become schwa, spelled with E, right? Spelled with E. So in the first column, you see Old English masculine, stan, stane, stane, stana, stanum, stana, depending on the case and the number here, right? So we know that from our Old English knowledge, right? Now in Early Middle English, in addition to spelling changes and sound changes R to O like this, right? In addition to that, there is this erosion of inflection to schwa. So here E is pronounced as a schwa, but written as an E, right? Stane to stone, like that, right? Written with an E. So E remains, right, in spelling, but the sound is schwa. Here the sound is just the A, right? And then ES, AS, right? ES here, ES and AS, when they became the schwa sound, spelled with an E. So they combine under the same spelling, right? So stoners, like that, stoners. So ES and AS, in terms of sounds, unstressed syllable, they became pronounced with a schwa. In spelling, E, right? So they combine in terms of spelling and sound. And then sternum, sterna, right? Sternum, sterna. So sternum became sternum, schwa with an M or N, right? So like this. And you might also see ES, right? You might also see ES as a variation because people start to get confused, right? And then sterna to stone, right? A to schwa, spelled with an E, right? And then after maybe 200 or 300 years to the end of Middle English period, like here, right? So you have only two distinctions between the mark with an S or the no mark, right? Mark with an S or no mark. So mark with an S including genitive and all the plurals, right? Genitive and all the plurals, because the genitive is important, right? You want to keep that distinction in order to indicate possession, right? So genitive is important and plural number is important. So you want to keep that. And then for other cases, like dative, accusative, nominative, so you unmark it, right? So you see the situation here. Now the final pictures here is to show you that this is what we call strong masculine. Stone is strong masculine. Will be extended to other classes, right? The class system of nouns like strong masculine, weak masculine, and so on. They will be replaced by this model, right? So because this is the majority, so people do analogy, right? So people did this through analogy. Remember we talked about analogy, and then they extend the paradigm, the how to mark the nouns to other classes of nouns, right? So you eliminated all the noun classes because you replace it with strong masculine like this, right? So you have this, and then the stone, and then the genitive remains, and the plural remains, right? We've talked about that before. And that paradigm, that pattern was extended to other classes of nouns, right? To weak, masculine, and so on, okay? That's the pronoun, right? Let's see, before we before we leave the noun thing, let me talk about this, that let's see, where's my note here? So for the situation of nouns, right, what's left? What's left in Middle English? What's left in Middle English? The first thing that you see is the genitive, right? Genitive is marked by S, from AS or ES, right? Old English, S or ES, right? So the first thing that's left, as you saw from that table, right, from the examples that I show, the first thing that's left is the genitive marker, right? The genitive marker S is left, right? And usually from Old English AS or ES, right? And then because the AS will be reduced to schwa, spelled with ES like that, right? And then the ES will, the E will go out, leaving only the S, right? And then plural remains, right? So plural S, again from OE, AS, or ES. Right? So I guess the reason why they remained is that these are important distinctions to make, right? Singular and plural, that's important because or else you wouldn't know whether it's one or many. And then genitive is also important because it tells you who is the possessor of the noun, right? So these two remains, right? And what about, you remember the process called E-umlaut or I mutation, right? So foot to feet, like that, and then mouse to mice, like that. You remember that? So that one also remains, the irregular E-umlaut. That one also carried over into Middle English, right? But that's a small group, as you know, right? That's a small group. So they survived into the Middle English period and also Modern English. Why is that? Because they are composed of only a small number of nouns, right? Only a small group. And they are frequent enough. That's why they survive, right? And then what else? Where's my red marker? And also, you know, there are some irregular plurals in Modern English, right? Ox to oxen, right? Ox to oxen, the en noun. Ox to oxen. And some of you might have heard this like brother. Of course, we have brother with an S, but you also have the word brethren, I think. But it's used in a different context than brothers. Like I have two brothers, you say that, but you don't say brethren like that. So you see the en ending here? The en ending here is from one of the noun classes in Old English. We call it n-stem, different class. That one also survived. That one also survived because they are so irregular and they are everyday words so that people keep using them and people just don't get rid of them because they use them so often, right? So this one also survived. And also the last one that survived is words like deer or salmon or sheep. You know the plural is 0, right, for these words. Deer, salmon, or sheep. I have 2 deer, I have 2 salmon, I have 2 sheep, right? The plural is 0 in these words. Again, remnants of Old English, because Old English, that group was not marked in the plural. So that's why we have no plural S in Modern English. So at this point, what we see is the remnants, right, of the Old English noun class, right? Noun classes and also the plural system. So the ones that are more important, like genitive and plural, right, they are extended to other noun classes, right? And we keep them, right? We keep them because they are good distinctions to make. And then we have small groups of nouns, right? Small groups of nouns like ox to oxen, brother to brethren, and also foot to feet, mouse to mice, deer to 0, salmon to 0 in terms of plural marking. These are small groups. These are irregular nouns in Old English, and people use them every day, right? They are major words, right? So they survive as is, right? They survive as is, right? Without any modification, without going into S or ES, right? So they survive. So these are the things that survive from Old English because of the erosion of the inflection system, right? So we call this process analogy. You remember analogy? You remember analogy? Analogy is when you extend, right? Analogy is when you extend. Let's see, analogy is when you extend, right? When you extend a pattern, when you extend the application of a pattern, the application of a pattern to the domains outside of the original. So you extend the application of a pattern to the domains outside of the original, right? In this case, you extend from strong masculine noun, the pattern from stone, right? The pattern that you saw in stone, stona, stonum, and to other noun groups, to other nouns group, right? To other noun groups. So we call it analogy, right? Analogy of the genitive S, right? Genitive S ending, and also plural S ending to other nouns. So in modern English, when we have new nouns, when we make up new nouns, and we want to indicate possession, right? We just put the S, right? And if we want to indicate plural, we just put the S, right? Same thing, right? So these are the result of analogy, right? So the vowel reduction is the first step, right? So you reduce the vowel to schwa, right? So to schwa sound. So causing the inflections to lose the meanings, the original meanings, right? So people became confused because after the vowel was reduced to schwa, then you cannot tell the distinction anymore, right? And you want to keep the distinctions that are important, like genitive and plural, and you extend them to other noun classes, right? So there are 2 steps in the process of noun, right? There are 2 steps in the process of noun changes, right? Nominal changes. And you will keep the irregular nouns like en, ox to oxen, en or deer to deer without anything, or foot to feet. You keep these where? You keep these because they are irregular and people use them every day, so there's no need for them to extend to do the analogy, right? So that's why these survive. And these are the remnants of Old English, actually. And then the only 2 that are productive are the genitive and the plural, right? We are out of time today. So we'll come back and talk about pronouns and other things on Wednesday, okay?